I just finished Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, and to be honest, it wasn't a show that I was particularly optimistic about. From the little we saw of it, I really just did not like the art style, and the animation looked choppy to me. The clips we did see didn't really intrigue me that much. I was kind of a doomer on this show. But then it came out, and it was good. It was really good. This is a Spider-Man show that is an exciting, fresh take on Spider-Man while still having that classic feel that we all crave. It tells a fun story about Peter Parker learning to become Spider-Man, but also tells real-life stories of community and capitalism. Today, I'm gonna break down how this show paints a clear picture of its Spider-Man and the world around him. But to do that, we should probably talk about the show's creator, Jeff Trammell. Jeff was born in Detroit, Michigan, and grew up reading comics and enjoying cartoons, but originally he wanted to be a pro wrestler. Even getting into writing later in life, Jeff was able to break into doing studio animation by entering a Nickelodeon writing contest, where he was one of the winners out of thousands of entries. While working as a lead writer on the Cartoon Network show Craig of the Creek, Jeff got the opportunity to pitch a show to Marvel Studios, and from there, Jeff was attached to make Spider-Man freshman year. It was originally intended as a prequel show to the Tom Holland Spider-Man from the MCU, but pretty quickly after it got announced, it was retooled into an Elseworld that was loosely based off of that MCU iteration of the character and retitled Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. Many details from the MCU version of the character do carry over into this show, like Aunt May in the Living Situation, the idea of being mentored by a billionaire, and the Sokovia Accords from Civil War without Spider-Man being attached to those events. Even smaller moments like the bus catch or Clev. In my opinion, breaking this show off from the MCU was nothing but a benefit for it, allowing it to tell unique and fresh stories while not being bogged down into already established MCU lore. This show has interesting character choices and is setting up plot lines for future seasons that genuinely excite me. I believe that if this quality can keep up, this will go down as one of the classic Spider-Man cartoons, just like the 90s show and Spectacular. Jeff Trammell even expresses this desire in an interview with Ryan Garr of Animation Magazine.
As much as Trammell's love for the webhead spans mediums, the Spider-Man story he holds closest is the symbiote arc from Spider-Man the Animated Series, which ran on Fox Kids from 1994 to 1998. I would have been about 5 or 6 when that show was on the air, and I still remember the feeling of seeing Spider-Man in his cool black suit years before I'd ever read the comics, he remembers. Seeing Peter fight for control and the introduction of Venom soon after, those memories are so clear in my mind of a time when Spider-Man went from being one of my favorite heroes to the favorite. That's one of the reasons I'm so excited for this show, because hopefully many years from now, someone will say these things about Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man.
And you see that 90s influence all over the show, from Peter's interaction with other superheroes, and the way that it uses 2 or 3 episode arcs to bake into bigger arcs. This is a classic Peter Parker, just a quiet, smart guy who wants to do the right thing. I love that we see him acting heroically and brave before he even gets bitten by the spider. But once the spider bite happens, he makes a homemade suit and gets right to helping out. He stops car chases and robberies, but even in these moments, his humanity shines through. He's not just saving people, he's getting a kid's balloon out of a tree. He's trying to help criminals get jobs so that they can get their life on a better track. This is, by all accounts, a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. This adaptation forgoes the school bully character, in change giving us Lonnie, who is sort of positioned like that, but then is bait and switched to be an extremely nice, charismatic guy. This is an interesting choice already because, for those who know, Lonnie Lincoln is usually Tombstone, and he's typically portrayed as considerably older than Peter Parker, not his peer. He's also typically the leader or lieutenant of a mob. And we do end there. We spend the whole season with Lonnie joining the 1/10th gang and slowly falling more and more into this gang life. Lonnie acts as a foil to Peter for the entire season, and really you could argue that he is the deuteragonist of this show. Both Peter and Lonnie are extremely smart with great aspirations for their future. Their relationship and shared arcs explore how living in a different area or your external factors can really affect your path. Both Peter and Lonnie carry similar morals. They are selfless and sacrificial. They want to help the people that they love. But the placing of those choices leads them on extremely different paths. Taking this mirror even further, they both have mentors who do sometimes help them, but ultimately misguide them and let those around them down. Big Donovan, Lonnie's mentor and leader of the 110th Street Gang, believes himself to be helping his community, telling Lonnie that the 110th is the only reason he's able to walk around safely in this area, and it sort of implies that he's a necessary evil to stop other gang violence and maybe even police violence on a level by drawing resources and attention. Norman is resource itself. He's powerful enough to influence major government decisions. He employs mass surveillance on the city and uses his immense wealth to strong-arm getting Peter's blood and identity without his consent. He tells Peter that helping him, that by using mass surveillance, they're doing good for their community, but that's just not the case. And we never see Norman using his power, wealth, or influence to material improve the lives of those in his communities.
You guys with your powers, floating above us as if you're better, not realizing the problems you're making for the rest of us to clean up, the lives you're changing with the people you hurt, the destruction you caused, the schools you destroy.
Norman misguides Peter because he himself is misguided on what generosity even is, as billionaires usually tend to be. He is the final boss of unchecked capitalism, doing what he pleases when he pleases with no overhead. He acts with more power than the police and federal government throughout the entire show, and frankly, that's kind of accurate as to our world right now. Another foil to Norman is Otto. Otto is a figure from Norman's past who has a similar ego and lust for power. Norman steals all of Otto's work, and this is clearly a commentary on how billionaires and CEOs use the labor and art of those below them to prop up their careers, usually leaving the original authors and laborers of that work in the dust.
You hid in the shadows and reap the benefits of someone else's work. Surprise, surprise. You're an opportunist, the type of parasite the society rewards.
I love episode 9 where these mentor relationships and Peter and Lonnie's arcs kind of crescendo. Peter gives in to misguidance from Norman, stopping himself from holding back and about to kill the Scorpion, just as Lonnie sees Big Donovan be a coward and run away. Lonnie stops Peter from killing Scorpion. The whole season, we assume that Tombstone is coming, that at some point he's going to cross that line and fight Spider-Man, but that's not what happens. And I'm sure it will in later seasons, but for this season's arc, it just works so perfectly. If you compare their mentors, Big Donovan doesn't actually have power, not real power. Norman Osborn doesn't squabble with Otto for territory like Big Donovan does with Scorpion. Of our two boys, the one in the street gang is the one who has to talk down the person being influenced by a major corporation. That relationship and its themes of class and power all crescendo into this defining character moment for the both of them, and it's executed so beautifully. Peter's main friends this show are Nico and Harry, and they take these explorations of class even further. Nico is Peter's best friend, and she acts as the voice of criticism for capitalism. She criticizes Oscorp and Norman to Peter all the time, and even goes as far as to criticize him directly for working at Oscorp.
Gross. You're seriously gonna work for Norman Osborn? Nobody gets as scary rich as that guy without doing some shady stuff along the way.
This basically forces the audience to think of this dichotomy. Is Peter being co-opted by a billionaire CEO actually a good thing? Is this something we should be rooting for? The show wants you to ponder that. Harry is Norman's son, and he is full stop a Nepo baby. Through having the time and wealth to do so, he was also able to build a massive following online and has become sort of an influencer. But even with all this blessing in his life, he isn't happy. His life is vapid and empty. He longs for something normal, like going to school and making friends, and meeting Peter finally sets him down that path that he's always longed for. The bonding between Nico and Harry is given a lot of time to develop through their different situations, and it's handled in a way that I really liked. Them ending up as a trio rather than just friends of Peter is natural and well handled. The ending of their arc is also just as beautiful as the ending of Peter and Lonnie's shared arc. Nico gives Harry an actionable, real plan to start a company that would help young scientists innovate and help people, and Harry puts his money where his mouth is. He starts the company. Just another example of how the underlinings of class inform these relationships into ending at a shared arc of understanding. Forming a community of people, forming bonds. The big one too is obviously Norman and Peter. Norman manipulates Peter by taking advantage of his financial woes. He infects Spider-Man with corporate ideology like demographics and stats. It is not a coincidence that the major twist of the show, the final big major plot point, is that we find out that Norman trying to steal from Peter and his interns is what allows Peter to get his power. Lonnie gets his powers because of the lack of care taken by a corporation. The show is telling you that you do have power to fight these things. You are not helpless. The show ends us off on Peter having a conversation with Doctor Strange, where Doctor Strange feels guilt about the destruction he caused of Midtown. Peter gives Doctor Strange the wise speech to end the show off on, not the other way around. We have watched our Peter grow from a fledgling Spider-Man who is unsure of his place in his community to knowing what he needs to do and what he should do. It can be overwhelming to take action, to try and improve your life and the lives of others. And we might not be Norman Osborn or Doctor Strange, who have the power to change policy on an international or federal level. But maybe we don't need to be. Yeah, we can't do that alone. But together we can, as a community of people. We have before. We can vouch for those less fortunate. We can protect our friends. And we can do it all while staying true to ourselves. Maybe it isn't as hard as we think. Maybe the first step to changing the world is just by being a good neighbor. Woohoo! That was a fun one. I'm so excited for the future seasons of this show, but I do hope they polish up that animation. I saw like repeated character models and still PNGs, way too much for my liking. I didn't cover everything about the show. There was probably more I could have said about Doc Ock, and I didn't really talk about Scorpion or the interns or Pearl, but those all felt a little bit less developed, and I hope Pearl has more to do next season, along with the interns. We don't even see Peter do his internship after we set that all up, besides like presentations. Like, we don't watch them work together, but, you know, whatever. It's still an amazing show. Props to the creatives behind it. Oh, it's also so funny that the voice of Peter was like, I didn't want it to be woke, because this is, like, the most woke thing Marvel has made in a while. Like, in a good way. Yeah, but it's just funny. Like, I don't know what he was talking about. Other than that, make sure to like and subscribe. Have a great day or night. Hippo out.